Clara had 3 months to earn what her family had left her. The archives were dusty, the financials were a mess, and the man who owned the other 85% had made it clear he wanted her gone before the first week was over. Clara almost didn't come. Not because she didn't need the money. She did, desperately, but because nothing in her life had ever started with, "You just need to stay 3 months," and ended well. Still, 15% of a Bordeaux estate wasn't an offer people like her got twice, so she showed up with one bag, a contract she didn't trust, and a very clear intention. Get what she came for, don't get attached, leave. The place looked exactly like something she didn't belong in. Too clean, too quiet, too expensive in that effortless way that said no one here ever worried about losing anything. The vineyards stretched out like they'd been measured with a ruler, everything in lines, everything controlled. "Of course," she muttered under her breath. "Even the dirt behaves here." "Not always." The voice came from behind her. Clara turned. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. No dramatic entrance, no forced presence. Just standing there like he already knew how this would go and didn't particularly like it. Sebastian looked at her the way people look at unexpected expenses, something to deal with, not something they wanted. "You're Clara," he said. "Not a question." "You're not hard to guess either," she replied. "You've got that this was all running perfectly before you arrived look." His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened slightly. "It was good," she said, adjusting the strap of her bag. "Then I'll try not to ruin it in the first 5 minutes." "That would be appreciated." Clara let the silence stretch for a moment as she tracked the movement of a worker in the distance, her eyes finally settling back on him. "So where do I sign in? Or is there a ceremony where you explain how much you already don't like me?" "I don't dislike you," Sebastian said calmly. "I don't know you." "Same thing for now." That almost got a reaction. Almost. He stepped aside slightly, not inviting, just not blocking her anymore. "You'll be working in the main office. Archives need sorting." "Of course they do," she said. "Nobody ever gives you 15% and says, just relax." "I'm not here to be a silent partner, Sebastian. If I'm going to own a piece of this estate, I need to see the bones of it. The archives are where the real story is told, and I don't trust anyone else to summarize them for me." "No," he replied. "They don't." She walked past him, then paused just enough to add, "And for the record, I didn't ask for this place." "Neither did I," he said. That made her stop. She turned back, studying him properly for the first time. Not the suit, not the posture, the tension underneath it. The kind that doesn't come from arrogance, but from pressure. "Right?" she said after a second. "That explains the mood." He didn't answer. They held each other's gaze a moment longer than necessary. Not soft, not friendly, just aware. Clara broke it first. "Show me the office." He nodded once and started walking. She followed, not because she trusted him, but because this was part of the deal. Inside, the estate felt even more controlled. Everything had a place. Everything stayed there. The office was no different. Files aligned, desk clean, nothing personal except a single glass on the side that hadn't been moved in a while. Clara dropped her bag near the desk and looked around. "You live like this too, or just work like this?" "Both," he said. "That sounds exhausting." "It's efficient." She gave a small, dry smile. "Same thing, right?" "No." That answer came too quickly. Clara noticed. She turned toward the shelves, running her fingers lightly along the edge of a stack of files. "So what exactly am I looking for?" "Inconsistencies," he said. "Anything that doesn't align. Financial. Everything." She nodded slowly. "So basically, find problems you don't want to see." "I prefer to know them before they cost me something." Clara glanced back at him. "Everything costs you something here, doesn't it?" A pause. "Most things," he said. That was more honest than she expected. She pulled out the first file, flipped it open, scanning quickly. Numbers, dates, names. Standard. Clean. Too clean. "You ever get the feeling something's off even when everything looks right?" she asked without looking up. "Yes." "Good," she said. "Because this feels like that." That got his attention. He stepped closer. Not too close, just enough to look over the file. "You found something?" "No," she said. "That's the problem." Another pause. This one different. They were standing closer now, both focused on the same page, but aware of each other in that quiet, annoying way that makes concentration harder than it should be. Clara shifted slightly, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear without thinking. Sebastian noticed, and immediately looked away like he hadn't. She didn't miss that either. Relax, she said lightly. I'm not stealing anything yet. His jaw tightened just a fraction. I didn't say you were. You didn't have to. She closed the file and set it aside. Look, I'm here for the same reason you are, to not lose something. Mine just happens to be money. And mine isn't. It is, she said, meeting his gaze again. Just not only that. That landed. He didn't respond immediately. For a second, the conversation slipped out of control, not into conflict, but into something more honest than either of them planned. Clara noticed it first, and shut it down just as fast. Anyway, she said, stepping back slightly, breaking the moment, I'll start with these. Good. Silence settled again, but not the same as before. Less sharp, more aware. Clara sat down, opened another file, and forced her focus back where it belonged. Work, numbers, patterns, things that made sense. Sebastian stayed where he was for a moment longer than necessary, then turned to leave. At the door, he stopped. Clara. She didn't look up. Yeah. If you find something, anything, you tell me immediately. She nodded once. Same goes for you. She hesitated at the threshold, her hand lingering on the doorframe. And for your own sake, Sebastian, check the facts before you decide who the villain is. That one hit directly. Sebastian didn't answer right away. Noted, he said finally. Then he left. Clara waited until she heard his steps fade before she let out a slow breath and leaned back slightly in her chair. 3 months, she murmured to herself. That's it. But even as she said it, something about this place already felt like it wasn't going to stay that simple. By the 3rd day, Clara understood 2 things. First, nothing in the estate happened by accident. Second, Sebastian noticed everything, even when he pretended not to. They hadn't agreed on any routine, but one formed anyway. She took the archives. He took everything else. And somehow they kept ending up in the same room longer than necessary. That morning, Clara was already at the desk when he walked in. You sleep here now? He asked, setting a folder down. Only when I'm emotionally attached to paperwork, she replied without looking up. So no, that explains the lack of progress. She glanced at him. Careful. You almost sounded funny. I wasn't trying to. Shame. A small pause. Not tense. Just there. She flipped another page, then frowned slightly. Okay, this is weird. What is? These entries. She tapped the page. They're too consistent. That's a problem. It is when people are involved, she said. Real records have mistakes. These don't. Sebastian moved closer, leaning slightly over the desk. You're saying they're cleaned up. I'm saying someone cared enough to make them look perfect. He watched the page for a second, then her. And that bothers you. It should bother you too. It does, he said. Another small pause. This one quieter. Clara felt it, the shift in attention again. Not obvious, not intrusive, but there. Like he was looking at her instead of the file. She didn't look up right away. Is there a reason you're staring? She asked calmly. I'm not. Right. Now she looked at him. He didn't look away. That was new. Say what you want to say, she added. Sebastian hesitated. Not long. Just enough to make it noticeable. You're different when you work. Clara blinked once, caught off guard by how normal that sounded. Different how? Less defensive. She leaned back slightly in her chair. I'm not defensive. You are, he said. Just not here. That's because paper doesn't judge me. It doesn't lie either, he replied. She held his gaze a second longer, then looked away first. People do both. Not always. Enough times. Silence again. But not uncomfortable. Just real. Clara reached for another file at the same time he reached for the same stack. Their hands brushed. Both of them pulled back immediately. Sorry, she said automatically. It's fine. The air between them felt heavy, charged with the sudden friction of their skin. Neither was willing to be the first to break the contact, even as they pulled away. Then Clara grabbed the file first. I'll take this one. Go ahead. He stepped back, but not far. Too close for it to feel like distance. Clara opened the file, but her focus slipped for a moment. Not because of the documents. Because of the stupid, brief contact that shouldn't have meant anything. Can we pretend that didn't happen? She said. What? The awkward hand thing. It wasn't awkward. She looked up. You pulled back like I shocked you. So did you. Yeah. Well, I have standards. That got a reaction. A real one this time. A short breath that was dangerously close to a laugh. Clara noticed immediately. There it is. What? You're human. I've been this whole time. Debatable. The tension shifted again. Lighter now, but not gone. Sebastian moved toward the side table, picking up a glass and pouring a small amount of wine without asking if she wanted any. Then he paused, glanced at her, and grabbed a second glass anyway. He set it near her. "I'm working," she said. "So am I. With wine. It helps." "With what?" "Patience." She snorted softly. "You're going to need more than that." "Probably." She looked at the glass for a second, then picked it up. "If this is bad, I'm blaming you." "It won't be." She took a small sip, then paused. "Okay, that's actually good." "I know. Don't get used to that," she said, setting it down. "I won't." Another pause, but this one didn't push them apart. It settled. Clara went back to the files, but she was aware of him again, moving around the room, not hovering, not watching too obviously, but present in a way that was starting to feel normal. That annoyed her more than anything. "You do this on purpose?" she asked after a while. "Do what?" "Make it impossible to ignore you." Sebastian stopped, genuinely confused. "I'm working." "Yeah," she said. "Exactly." He studied her for a second, then shook his head slightly. "You're overthinking it." "I don't overthink. You just said I was being strategically noticeable. I said you were annoying." "That too." A small silence followed. Then Clara smiled faintly, almost to herself. Sebastian noticed. "Something funny?" he asked. "Yeah," she said, still looking at the page. "I thought you'd be worse." "Worse how?" "More arrogant. Less this." "This what?" She gestured vaguely in his direction. "Less tolerable." "I'll try harder." "Please don't," she said quickly. "I just started getting used to it." That slipped out more honestly than she intended. They both caught it, and neither of them spoke for a second. Because that was new. Clara cleared her throat lightly and tapped the file. "Anyway, these records. I'm serious. Something's off." Sebastian nodded once, more focused now. "Then we find out what." "Together?" she asked before she could stop herself. He looked at her. Not surprised. Not cautious. Just direct. "Yes," he said. That word landed differently than anything else so far. Not tension. Not conflict. Something else. Clara nodded slowly. "Okay." And just like that, they stopped working against each other. Not fully, but enough for it to matter. Madeline didn't arrive loudly. She arrived like she already belonged. Clara noticed the shift before she saw her. Staff straightened a little more, conversations adjusted. Even the way people moved changed, subtle, but coordinated, like everyone knew exactly how to behave when she was around. "Who's that?" Clara asked quietly, not looking up from the file. Sebastian didn't need to check. "Madeline." "That explains the atmosphere." "You noticed it." "I'm not blind." He hesitated a second. "Be careful with her." Clara finally looked at him. That sounded almost like concern. It was a warning. "Same thing," she said lightly, though she registered it. Madeline reached them a moment later. She didn't rush, didn't interrupt, just stopped at the right distance and smiled like this was a normal, pleasant introduction. "So," she said, looking at Clara, "you're the new partner." Clara closed the file calmly. "That's one way to say it." Madeline's eyes flicked to Sebastian briefly, then back. "And how would you say it?" "Temporary problem," Clara replied. "Depends who you ask." That earned a small, real smile. "Honest. I like that." "You don't," Clara said. "But I appreciate the effort." Sebastian shifted slightly beside them, not stepping in, but paying attention. Madeline didn't react outwardly. "You're settling in?" "I'm working," Clara said. "That's good," Madeline replied. "This place has a way of overwhelming people who aren't used to it." Clara tilted her head slightly. "You mean people who don't belong?" "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Madeline's smile didn't falter, but her gaze hardened, a cold calculation replacing the social mask she'd worn only seconds before. Madeline turned slightly toward the shelves. "Sebastian tends to value efficiency over comfort." "I noticed," Clara said. "And loyalty over everything else," Madeline added casually. That one was placed carefully. Clara caught it. "So I've heard," she said. Madeline looked back at her. "Then you understand why trust here isn't given easily." Clara met her gaze. "I'm not asking for it. That's usually when people want it most." "Not really," Clara said. "I prefer knowing where I stand." "And where is that?" "Undecided," she replied. "For now." Madeline studied her a moment longer, then nodded slightly, like she'd just confirmed something to herself. "Good. That wasn't agreement. That was calculation." The conversation ended there on the surface, but the effect stayed. Clara went back to work, but now she was aware of something else. Not just Sebastian, not just the documents. A third angle. Watching. Waiting. The real move came that evening. The estate hosted a small gathering. Not formal, not loud, but structured enough that everyone present understood they were being observed, even while pretending they weren't. Clara didn't plan to engage. She stayed near the edge, glass in hand, watching the room instead of participating in it. Sebastian was across the hall, talking to someone she didn't recognize, but his attention drifted more than once. Brief, controlled glances in her direction that he probably thought she didn't notice. She did, and ignored it. Madeline, on the other hand, didn't ignore anything. She approached at the exact moment Clara had the least patience for it. "You're hiding," Madeline said lightly. "I'm standing," Clara replied. "In the corner. Best view." Madeline smiled. "Of what?" "People pretending," Clara said. "And what do you see?" Clara took a small sip of wine. "You want the polite version or the honest one?" "Always honest." "You're good at controlling a room," Clara said. "But you push too far when you think no one's paying attention." That landed. Not hard, but precisely. Madeline's smile didn't fade. "And you think you're the one paying attention?" "I know I am." A small pause. Then Madeline shifted tone, slightly softer, more personal. "You should be careful with Sebastian," she said quietly. "He doesn't mix business with distractions." Clara let out a short breath. "Good. I'm not a distraction." Madeline tilted her head. "That's not how it looks." "To who?" "To him." That was the first direct hit. Clara didn't react immediately. Didn't give her that. Instead, she said, "You talk like you know him well." "I do. And yet you're still explaining him to me," Clara replied. Madeline's eyes narrowed just slightly. Then she smiled again. "I'm just making sure you don't misunderstand your position." "My position is written in a contract," Clara said. "Not in your opinion. That contract doesn't protect you from mistakes." "No," Clara agreed. "But it protects me from being pushed out because someone feels threatened." That one hit. Madeline's smile held, but something behind it cooled. Across the room, Sebastian had stopped talking. Watching now. Clara noticed. Madeline noticed that Clara noticed. "Interesting. Enjoy the evening," Madeline said finally. "You too," Clara replied. Madeline turned and walked away, smooth, composed, like nothing had happened. But something had. Clara exhaled slowly and set her glass down. "You handled that well." Sebastian's voice came from beside her. She didn't look at him immediately. "You were listening." "I was watching." "Same thing." A small pause. Then she added, "You didn't step in. You didn't need me to." Clara glanced at him. "That's new." "I'm learning." She studied him for a second. "From who?" "You," he said simply. That was unexpected. Clara looked away first this time. "Careful," she said. "You might start liking me." "Unlikely." "Good." A beat. Then she added, quieter, "because that would complicate things." Sebastian didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was lower. "They're already complicated." Clara met his gaze again, and for a second, neither of them pretended it wasn't true. The storm didn't interrupt the day. It waited until evening, building slowly, like pressure that had nowhere else to go. Clara noticed it first, not the clouds, but the way people started moving differently. Faster, more focused. No wasted motion. "You're coming," Sebastian said, already grabbing a jacket. She looked up from the table. That wasn't a question. "No." "Where?" "Vineyards." "Lower Rose Flood first." Clara closed the file without arguing. "Give me a minute." They didn't talk much on the way out. Wind picked up across the open fields, carrying that sharp, metallic smell that comes before heavy rain. The sky was already darkening, the kind of gray that doesn't look dramatic, just inevitable. "You do this every time?" she asked as they reached the first row. "When it matters." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one that counts." She glanced at him. "You don't like losing control, do you?" He didn't look at her. "No one does. Some people handle it better." "Do they?" he asked. Clara didn't answer that. Instead, she moved ahead slightly, stepping between the rows, checking the supports the same way she'd seen others do earlier. Not perfectly, but close enough. Sebastian noticed. "You've been watching," he said. "I pay attention," she replied. "It helps." "With what?" "Not looking stupid." "That's not your problem." She snorted softly. "You've known me 4 days." "Long enough." A small pause. Wind pushed harder now. First drops of rain hit the ground, slow, spaced out, like a warning. Clara wiped one from her cheek. So what actually happens if this goes wrong? Yield drops. Quality drops. Contracts get harder to keep. And everything becomes harder to fix. She stopped walking and looked at him properly. That's not what I meant. He knew that, but didn't answer immediately. Rain picked up, faster now. Clara held his gaze. You said it was everything. A beat. Then, quieter. So what happens to you? That question. He couldn't deflect. Sebastian exhaled once, looking past her toward the rose. I don't rebuild, he said finally. I maintain. If this fails, there's no clean version to start again from. Clara watched him carefully. That wasn't business. That was personal. You've tied too much of yourself to it, she said. I've tied exactly what was needed. That's the same thing. Rain intensified. They both felt it now, cold, fast, unavoidable. There's a shed further down, he said. We'll wait it out. They moved quickly, not running, but not wasting time either. By the time they reached the small wooden structure, they were both soaked enough that it stopped mattering. Inside, it was dim, dry barely. The sound of rain hitting the roof filled the space, loud enough to cut off everything else. Clara leaned against the wall, catching her breath. Okay, she said, brushing wet hair back. That escalated. Sebastian stayed near the entrance, watching the rain for a second before turning back. You didn't have to come, he said. You didn't ask, she replied. I assumed. That's risky. You came anyway. Yeah, she said. I did. A pause. Not awkward. Just present. Clara crossed her arms loosely, not defensive, just settling. You're different out there. In the rain? No, she said. When you're not pretending everything's under control. He let out a quiet breath. I'm not pretending. You are, she said calmly. Just not as well as you think. That could have turned into an argument. It didn't. Sebastian leaned back slightly against the wooden beam. And you? He asked. You always this direct? When it saves time. And when it doesn't. She hesitated a second. Then I pretend I don't care, she said. That was the first time she'd said something like that without deflecting. Sebastian noticed. So which one is this? He asked. Clara looked at him. Really looked. Not pretending, she said. Silence. But not empty. The kind that makes you aware of everything else. The distance. The way the space feels smaller than it is. The fact that neither of you is moving away. Rain got louder. Closer. Or maybe everything else just faded. Sebastian stepped forward. Not fast. Not forced. Just enough to close part of the distance. Clara didn't move. That was the difference this time. You make this complicated, he said quietly. I don't, she replied. I just don't ignore it. That's the problem. No, she said. That's the honest part. Another step. Now they were close enough that it stopped being neutral. Clara's breath slowed slightly. Not nervous, just aware. You stopped earlier, she said. I know. Why? He didn't answer immediately. Because this time. He didn't have a clean reason. Because it changes things, he said. He looked at her, and for the first time, the calculation in his eyes failed. He wasn't looking at a partner or a problem to be managed. He was looking at the only person who had seen through his armor in a decade. The risk of losing his control was high, but the risk of remaining untouched by her was suddenly higher. It already did. That landed. A second passed. Then another. Neither of them moved away. Not yet. Sebastian's hand lifted slightly, hesitated, then stopped halfway, like he wasn't sure if crossing that line was a mistake or the only honest move left. Clara noticed, and instead of stepping back, she stayed. That was enough. He closed the distance. This time slower. Less collision. More decision. The almost from before didn't repeat the same way. It wasn't sudden. It was deliberate, like both of them knew exactly what they were doing and still chose not to stop. Their lips brushed. And for a second, everything else dropped out. No storm. No estate. No contract. Just that. Then Sebastian pulled back. Not sharply this time. Just enough. Clara blinked once, adjusting to the space returning. You're doing it again, she said quietly. I know. And it's still a bad strategy. He let out a short breath. Probably. A pause. Closer than before. But not crossing again. Then don't treat it like one, she said. That wasn't pressure. That was clarity. Sebastian looked at her for a second longer. Then stepped back fully. Not rejecting. Resetting. Clara nodded once, like she understood the line he was drawing, even if she didn't agree with it. Fine, she said. The rain outside started easing, just slightly. Not over. but passing. Neither of them spoke again for a while. Because this time, they both knew exactly what almost happened, and exactly why it didn't. A week passed before anything broke. Not quietly, not gradually, just snapped. Clara felt the difference the moment she walked into the office that evening. Not because something was obviously wrong, but because Sebastian was already there, and he wasn't working. He was waiting. That alone was enough. "You look like you found a problem," she said, setting her bag down slowly. "I did." "Good," she replied. "So did I? We can compare. This isn't about the records." That stopped her. Clara studied him for a second, then noticed the small velvet box on the desk. Out of place. Deliberately. "That's not mine," she said immediately. "I didn't say it was. You didn't have to." Sebastian didn't react to that. He just looked at the box, then at her. "Open it." For a heartbeat, Sebastian's hand twitched toward the folder, a sharp instinct to bury the evidence before he had to face it. He wanted the system to be wrong. For the first time in his life, he was looking for a flaw in his own logic, but the numbers on the screen were screaming louder than his intuition. The conflict was written in the rigid line of his shoulders. He was caught between the man who was starting to trust her and the man who had survived by never trusting anyone. Clara didn't move right away. Then she stepped forward and flipped it open. A ring. Expensive. Recognizable even if you didn't care about jewelry. She closed it again without touching it further. "Let me guess. Madeline." "Yes. Of course it is." A pause. Then she looked at him directly. "And you think I took it?" "I think it was found here," he said. "In your workspace." Clara let out a quiet, disbelieving breath. "That's not an answer. It's a fact." "No," she said. "It's a setup." Silence. Not loud, but heavy. Sebastian's jaw tightened slightly. "You were here most of the day. So were other people. Not alone." That landed. Harder than he intended. Clara took a step closer. "Say it properly." "What?" "That you think I did it." "I didn't say that." "But you're standing like you already decided it," she shot back. A beat. Then, quieter but sharper. "And that's worse." Sebastian exhaled slowly. "I'm trying to understand what happened." "No," she said immediately. "You're trying to make it make sense in a way that doesn't risk you being wrong. That's not fair." "It's accurate." The room tightened. Clara crossed her arms, not defensive, controlled. "You warned me about her." "I did. And now you're doing exactly what she wanted." "I'm verifying the situation." "You're doubting me." "I'm questioning the circumstances." "That involved me." "Yes." There it was. No way around it anymore. Clara nodded once, slowly. "Right." A pause. Then she said, calmer than before, "Ask me." Sebastian frowned slightly. "What?" "Ask me if I took it." Another pause. Longer. Because now it was direct. He looked at her. Really looked. "Did you?" he asked. Clara didn't blink. No. No hesitation. No explanation. Just that. Silence stretched between them. Sebastian held her gaze. Trying to read something. Anything. Clara didn't fill it. Didn't defend. Didn't argue. Just waited. "That should be enough," she said finally. "It should," he agreed. "But it's not," she added. That. He couldn't deny. A second passed. Then another. Clara stepped back slightly, putting space between them. "You don't trust me." "I do. Not when it matters." "That's not." "It is," she cut in. "Because this is exactly when it matters." Her voice didn't rise. That made it worse. Sebastian ran a hand briefly through his hair, a rare break in composure. "I need to understand how it got here." "Then figure it out," she said, without assuming I'm the answer. "I'm not assuming." "You are," she replied. "You're just calling it something else." Another silence. Tighter now. Clara's expression shifted, not anger anymore. Something more personal. "You know what the problem is?" she said quietly. Sebastian didn't answer. "You don't actually trust people," she continued. "You trust systems. Proof. Control. That's how you avoid mistakes." "No," she said. "That's how you avoid risk." "And what's wrong with that?" "You lose everything that isn't measurable," she replied. That landed deeper than anything before. Sebastian stepped closer. Not aggressive, but not distant either. "And what am I losing right now?" he asked. Clara held his gaze. "You tell me," she said. The space between them closed again. Not intentionally. Just happened. Tension shifted. Not clean. Not simple. Something raw underneath it. Sebastian spoke first. "I believe you," he said. Clara blinked once. Because that wasn't what she expected. "Then why are we still here?" she asked. Because I don't understand the rest of it, he replied. Then understand this, Clara said, her voice dropping to a whisper that felt like a cut. You didn't just doubt my honesty, Sebastian. You looked at me and chose to see exactly what Madeline wanted you to see. That's not a system error. That's a choice. She didn't move closer. She stepped back, making the space between them feel like a canyon. Clara, he started, his hand reaching out and then stopping, paralyzed by the sudden coldness in her eyes. Don't, she said. You want to fix the estate? Fine. We'll find the records. But don't pretend that a kiss in the rain gives you the right to break me whenever it's convenient for your peace of mind. The silence that followed wasn't tense. It was hollow. For the first time, Sebastian looked at her and didn't see a partner to manage, but a woman he was actively losing. No hesitation. No testing. Just direct. Sebastian reacted instantly, one hand catching her wrist, the other at her side, pulling her closer instead of pushing her away. It wasn't soft. It wasn't calm. It was everything they hadn't said: frustration, tension, the constant pull they kept pretending wasn't there. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Then Clara pulled back, breathing uneven, but steady enough. This doesn't fix it, she said. I know. You still doubted me. I did. That honesty hit harder than denial would have. Clara stepped back fully this time. Space restored, but not clean anymore. Then don't do it again, she said. Sebastian looked at her. I won't, he said. She held his gaze a second longer, then nodded once. Good. A pause. Then she grabbed her bag. I'm not done here, she added. But I'm also not staying in a room where I have to prove I didn't steal something. That's fair. She stopped at the door, not turning. Figure it out, she said. I will. Then she left. Sebastian stayed where he was, the box still on the desk, the problem still unsolved. But now clearly not where he first thought it was. Because the real risk wasn't the accusation. It was what it almost cost him. Clara didn't leave the estate. She just stopped showing up where he was. For 2 days, they worked around each other without speaking. Not intentionally at first, but then it became deliberate. Different hours. Different spaces. Same goal. It should have made things easier. It didn't. On the third night, Clara was still in the archives long after everyone else had gone. A small lamp, scattered files, and too many open threads that refused to connect cleanly. She rubbed her eyes briefly and went back to the page in front of her. The pattern was there. It just didn't explain the ring. That still doesn't make sense. Sebastian's voice. Behind her. Clara didn't turn immediately. You've been standing there long? Long enough. Creepy. Focused. She exhaled quietly, then finally looked back at him. If you're here to apologize again, don't. You already did it once. I'm not. Good. A small pause. Then he stepped closer, not into her space, but not avoiding it either. You were right. Clara raised an eyebrow. About which part? This being a setup. That wasn't hard to figure out. No, he said. Figuring out how wasn't either. That got her attention. She turned fully now. Go on. Sebastian set a folder down on the table. Inventory logs. Not the clean ones. Internal system backups. Clara frowned slightly. You said those were locked. They are. And I unlocked them. The handwritten notes your mother left behind. They weren't just records of theft. She'd hidden the administrative override codes within the dates of her entries. She knew someone would eventually lock the system to hide the trail, and she made sure the person who found her files would have the key to open it. Look at the June entries, Clara said, pointing to a smudge of ink that bled into the margin of the physical ledger. The ink is darker here because she was pressing down, marking a specific deviation. It matches the exact moment the offshore routing changed. Madeline didn't just move money. She tried to overwrite the history of these vineyards. But she forgot that my mother didn't just record data. She recorded intent. She looked at him for a second. I'm not even going to ask how. Good. He opened the folder, sliding a page toward her. The ring was logged as moved before it disappeared. Clara leaned in, scanning quickly. Timestamp. Earlier that day, before you were even in the office. She went still for half a second, then looked up. So it was planted. Yes. And tracked, she added, tapping the page. So someone could prove it ended up with me. That's the idea. A silence followed. But this one was different. Not tense. Aligned. Clara leaned back slightly, processing. Okay, she said slowly. That means she planned it in advance. Which means the diaries are connected, Sebastian finished. They both looked at the stack of documents at the same time. Same thought. Same direction. That was new. Clara turned back to the shelves and started pulling older files. Faster now. More certain. Help me with this. Sebastian didn't hesitate. That was also new. They worked side by side. No distance this time. No careful avoidance. Just movement, pages, quiet coordination. At some point, Clara stopped. Wait. She pulled a smaller bundle from behind a row of archived ledgers. Not cataloged. Hidden. Sebastian stepped closer. What is it? She hesitated before opening it. Then did. Handwritten pages. Familiar handwriting. Clara's expression changed immediately. Not dramatically, but enough that he noticed. My mother, she said quietly. Sebastian didn't interrupt. Didn't ask questions. Just stayed there. Clara flipped through the pages carefully now, slower than before. This wasn't just data. This was personal. She knew. Clara said after a moment. Knew what? That something was being moved off record, she replied. Small amounts. Over time. Enough not to be noticed. Sebastian leaned slightly closer, not touching, just reading over her shoulder. And she tracked it. Yes. Clara turned another page. Then another. Her focus sharpened. This isn't theft, she said. It's redistribution. Explain. She tapped a line. Funds get shifted, then re-enter through different accounts. Clean. Structured. Hidden inside normal operations. And Madeline is either continuing it, Clara said, or covering it. A pause. Then she added, quieter. Or both. Sebastian straightened slightly. That gives us motive. It gives us direction, Clara corrected. Motive we already had. He nodded once. They kept going. Time passed without either of them tracking it. At some point, Clara sat on the edge of the table, pages spread around her. Sebastian leaned against the opposite side, both of them deep in the same problem. Less distance. More natural. Clara rubbed the side of her neck slightly. You ever notice how the more sense something makes, the worse it gets? Yes. Good, she said. Because this is getting worse. A small pause. Then Sebastian said, you should rest. She gave him a look. That's not happening. You've been at this all day. So have you. That's different. How? I'm used to it. Clara shook her head slightly. That's not an advantage. That's a problem. That hit. He didn't argue. Instead, he moved to the small machine in the corner and poured coffee. This time, he handed it to her without comment. Clara took it. Thanks. A beat. Then she added, quieter. You didn't have to come here. Yes, I did. No, she said. You chose to. He didn't deny it. Another pause. Clara looked at him over the rim of the cup. Why? Sebastian met her gaze. No hesitation this time. Because I trust you, he said. Simple. Direct. Different from before. Clara held his eyes for a second longer than necessary, then looked away first. Took you long enough, she muttered. I know. Silence again. But not heavy. Just steady. They went back to the pages, but the dynamic had changed. No edge. No testing. Just shared focus. At one point, Clara leaned slightly closer to see a line better, her shoulder brushing his. Neither of them moved away. Neither of them commented. It just stayed. That's new, she said after a moment. What is this? She gestured slightly between them. Not fighting. It's more efficient. She gave him a look. There it is. Back to systems. He almost smiled. Working on it. Good, she said. Because this isn't one. No, he agreed quietly. It isn't. Another pause. Then Clara looked at him again. More directly. You're different too, she said. How? You stopped trying to win every conversation. That was never the goal. It was, she said. You just didn't call it that. A beat. Then he nodded once. Fair. That honesty. It mattered. They went back to the work. But now, the silence between them wasn't tension. It was understanding. And for the first time, neither of them was trying to break it. The shift didn't happen overnight. It took time. Days where things worked, where the tension eased into something steadier, where Clara stopped expecting resistance in every conversation and Sebastian stopped looking for it. That's why it hit harder when it broke again. The envelope was waiting for him in the morning. No name. No explanation. Just placed on his desk like it belonged there. Sebastian didn't open it immediately. He already knew the pattern. Still, he did. Inside, copies. Extracts. Fragments of the diaries, but rearranged. Lines taken out of context. Notes rewritten just enough to change their meaning without making it obvious. And at the center of it, Clara's mother. Not as someone tracking irregularities, as someone causing them. Sebastian read it twice. Not because he believed it, because it was constructed well enough to force the question. Clara walked in 10 minutes later. She noticed him before anything else. Not the envelope, not the papers. Him. What happened, she asked. Sebastian didn't wait for her to ask. He turned the folder toward her, but his hand stayed on the edge of the desk, steady. Clara stepped closer, took it, and started reading. The change in her expression was immediate. Not confusion. Recognition. This is twisted, she said quietly. It's a surgical strike, Sebastian said. His voice was hard, but directed at the folder, not her. They've stripped the context to make your mother look like the architect of the leak. Clara closed the folder slowly, her knuckles white. She looked at him, bracing for the question she expected to see in his eyes. The doubt she'd already memorized. But Sebastian didn't flinch. I've already cross-referenced the digital logs from the night of the storm, he said. The metadata doesn't match the physical dates in these entries. It's a forgery, Clara. A desperate one. Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. You didn't wait for me to explain. I didn't need to, he replied. I'm done measuring you against her lies. I'm not. You are, she repeated. You're not accusing me. You're just stepping back. Measuring. Waiting. That's called thinking. That's called doubt. Silence. Not loud, but sharp. Sebastian exhaled slowly. Clara, this connects your mother to what we found. No, she said immediately. It connects a manipulated version of her to it. And if there's a part of it that's real, that was the mistake. Clara didn't raise her voice, didn't move. She just looked at him, and something in her expression closed. You really said that, she murmured. I'm asking a question. You're questioning me. I'm questioning the situation. That includes me. Yes. There it was again. No way to soften it. Clara took a step back. Not dramatic. Just enough to create distance. But not showing up would have meant letting someone else define the narrative. So she came. Not dressed to impress. Not hiding either. Just present. Sebastian saw her the moment she entered. Didn't move toward her. Didn't look away either. That was new. Madeline noticed both of them. And smiled. She approached Clara first. Glad you decided to join us, she said lightly. I didn't come for you, Clara replied. Of course not. A small pause. Then Madeline lowered her voice slightly. You look tired. I'm not. You should be, Madeline said softly. This isn't a comfortable position to be in. Clara held her gaze. Then why are you trying so hard to keep me in it? That landed. Madeline's smile sharpened just slightly. I'm not doing anything. Right? Clara said. Things are just happening around me. Sometimes they do. Not like this. A pause. Then Madeline stepped back half a step, just enough to shift the angle of attention. People nearby were already watching. That was intentional. Since we're here, Madeline said, louder now, maybe it's time to address the situation properly. Clara didn't move, didn't react, just stood there. Go ahead, she said. Madeline turned slightly, addressing more than just Clara now. There have been inconsistencies, records that don't align, questions about where certain assets have been. The room tightened. Subtle, but noticeable. Clara glanced briefly toward Sebastian. He was already moving. Not fast, not dramatic, just direct. He stepped into the space between them, not blocking Clara, not confronting Madeline, just positioning himself where the conversation couldn't ignore him. That's enough, he said. Madeline tilted her head. I'm just clarifying concerns. You're creating them, he replied. A pause. Then she looked at him more directly. You've seen the documents. I have. And silence. For a second too long. Clara noticed. Of course she did. Then Sebastian spoke. They're manipulated. That shifted the room. Not loudly, but clearly. Madeline's expression didn't change, but her fingers tightened on the stem of her glass. That's a strong claim, Sebastian. One that carries a high price for the estate's reputation. I'm not paying your debts anymore, Madeline, he replied. His voice didn't rise, but it carried a finality that silenced the immediate circle of guests. I've already submitted the cross-referenced logs to the board. The forensic audit didn't just find the missing assets. It found the digital fingerprints you left when you tried to scrub the June archives. You relied on the system's complexity to hide you, but you forgot that I designed the encryption you tried to bypass. A cold, heavy silence settled over the room. Madeline's mask didn't just slip, it shattered. You would risk everything for a girl who's been here a week? She hissed, her voice dropping the social veneer. I'm risking nothing, Sebastian said, stepping fully to Clara's side. I'm finally protecting what's actually ours. Security is waiting in the hall. Don't make this louder than it needs to be. He didn't look at Clara for validation. He stood his ground as a partner. Security will escort you to collect your personal belongings. The legal team will take it from there. Madeline opened her mouth to retort, but seeing the eyes of the investors on her, she realized the narrative had already shifted beyond her control. She didn't walk away in triumph. She was forced into a retreat, her exit marked by the heavy footsteps of the estate's security. The room stayed quiet a moment longer before slowly, carefully, conversations resumed. Controlled, measured, like everyone was recalibrating what they had just seen. Clara didn't move. Sebastian didn't either. The space between them, different now, but not resolved. He spoke first. I should have done that earlier. Yes, she said. No softness, just truth. A pause. Then he added, quieter. I didn't. I know. Another silence. Not hostile, but not easy. Sebastian took a small step closer. I'm not asking you to forget that. Good, Clara said. Because I won't. That was fair. He nodded once. I am asking you to let me not repeat it. Clara looked at him properly now. Longer. Measuring. Not his words. Him. That's not something you asked for, she said. That's something you prove. I will. A beat. She didn't answer immediately. Because this wasn't fixed. Not yet. But something had shifted. Not enough to erase what happened. Enough to continue. Clara exhaled slowly. Then start by not explaining it, she said. Just don't do it again. Sebastian nodded. Understood. Another pause. Then she stepped slightly past him. Not leaving, just moving. Not avoiding. Not staying in place either. A middle ground. Sebastian didn't follow. Didn't stop her. Just watched. Because this time, he understood that the next step wasn't his to take. And for once, he didn't try to control it. Madeline didn't disappear immediately. People like her never do. But the structure around her started breaking fast. Not publicly at first. Quiet calls, canceled meetings, small shifts in how others spoke to her. Respect didn't vanish. It recalculated. Clara noticed it in the background. Sebastian dealt with it directly. They still didn't work in the same room. Not because they couldn't. Because neither of them rushed it. A few days later, the hall was empty again. No guests. No performance. Just aftermath. Clara stood near the long table, going through the last of the documents they'd pulled together. Not searching anymore. Finishing. Sebastian entered without announcing himself. She didn't look up right away. You walk quieter now. I always did. No, she said. You just used to want people to notice. That was accurate. He didn't argue. A small pause settled between them. Then Clara closed the folder in front of her. It's done. What is? The version where we needed to prove anything, she said. The records line up. The transfers are clear. It all points to her. She tried to frame my mother because my mother was the only one who didn't just maintain the system. She questioned it, Clara said, tracing the signature on the final page. Madeline didn't just want the money. She wanted to erase the person who almost caught her 20 years ago. Using me was just her way of finishing the job. Sebastian nodded once. I'll finalize it. Clara leaned back slightly against the table. You don't need me for that. I know. Another pause. Not tense. Just careful. Sebastian stepped a little closer, not crossing into her space fully, but not keeping distance either. How long were you planning to keep avoiding me? Clara finally looked at him. I wasn't avoiding you. You changed your schedule. I adjusted it. That's the same thing. No, she said. Avoiding is emotional. This was practical. He held her gaze. And now, a beat. Clara exhaled slowly. Now it's less necessary. That wasn't forgiveness. But it wasn't distance either. Sebastian nodded slightly. Fair. Silence followed. He broke it this time. I was wrong, he said. Clara didn't react immediately. Not because she didn't hear him. Because she was deciding what to do with it. I know, she said finally. I should have trusted you. Yes. I didn't. No. Each answer clean. No padding. No comfort. Just truth. Sebastian didn't look away. That's not something I can fix quickly. No, Clara agreed. It's not. A pause. Then she added, quieter. And you don't fix it by repeating it in different words. That landed. He adjusted slightly, like resetting his approach. Then I won't. Good. Another silence. Shorter this time. Clara shifted her weight, arms no longer crossed. Less closed. Not open either. Why didn't you push? She asked suddenly. Sebastian frowned slightly. Push what? After the reception, she said. You didn't come after me. Didn't try to explain. Didn't try to fix it immediately. He considered the question, then answered honestly. Because last time I did that, it made things worse. Clara studied him. And I realized I wasn't trying to fix it, he said. I was trying to stop you from leaving. That was precise. She nodded slightly. That sounds right. So I didn't, he added. Didn't what? Didn't interfere. A pause. Clara looked at him a moment longer. That helped, she admitted. It wasn't much, but it was real. Sebastian nodded once. Good. Another silence. This one different. Not cautious. Not tense. Just space that didn't need to be filled. Clara glanced down at the table, then back at him. You're still going to do it again. He didn't react defensively. Probably, he said. That caught her off guard. A small shift in her expression. At least you're honest, she said. I'm trying to be accurate. That's new. I'm adjusting. Clara almost smiled. Almost. You're not very good at it yet, she said. I know. That was the second time he said it like that. Not defensive. Not joking. Just aware. It mattered. Clara pushed off the table slightly, standing straighter now. Then don't aim for perfect. I don't. You do, she said. That's the problem. A beat. Then she added. Try consistent instead. Sebastian considered that. Then nodded. I can do that. Another pause. Clara picked up her bag, but didn't move toward the door immediately. If you doubt me again, she said, not looking away, say it immediately. I will. Don't wait until it turns into something else. I won't. A moment passed. Then she added, quieter. And don't expect me to react calmly every time. I don't. That felt balanced. Clara nodded once. Good. She started toward the door, then stopped. Not turning this time. Just speaking. I'm not leaving, she said. Sebastian didn't answer immediately. Because that wasn't small. Clara continued. But I'm also not pretending nothing happened. That's fair, he said. She nodded slightly, then left. Sebastian stayed where he was. The room felt different now. Not empty. Not tense. Just cleared. Not everything fixed. Not everything stable. But nothing false left holding it together. And for the first time, that felt like something solid to build on. Time didn't heal what happened between them. It reorganized it. What used to be sharp became quieter. What used to be avoidance became structure. They didn't return to how things were before. There was no version of that left. They built something new instead. Slowly, without announcing it. Clara stopped avoiding the main office. Sebastian stopped pretending he didn't notice when she was in the room. Neither of them commented on it. That was the agreement. One evening, Clara was sitting at the desk again, sketching label concepts for a new line. Not because it was assigned to her, but because she had started treating parts of the estate like they were hers to shape, not just observe. Sebastian entered without knocking. She didn't look up immediately. You're getting predictable. I knocked last time, he said. You did not. I considered it. That doesn't count. A pause. Then he stepped closer, placing a small stack of documents on the table beside her. Final approvals. Clara glanced at them. You handled it. Yes. Without me. Yes. Another pause. She looked up at him now. That used to bother you. It still does, he said. Good, she replied. That earned a faint, almost invisible shift in his expression. Not a smile. Something closer to acceptance. Clara leaned back slightly. So what changed? Sebastian didn't answer immediately. Then he said, I stopped treating involvement as control. She studied him for a second. That sounds like therapy. It's experience. Same thing, just slower, she said. That got a short exhale from him. Close to a laugh again. Clara noticed. You're doing that more, she said. What? Almost laughing. I don't plan it. Good, she said. That would ruin it. A quiet moment followed. Not heavy. Not fragile. Just stable. Sebastian looked at the sketches on the desk. You're designing again. I never stopped, she said. You just stopped showing it. That's different. Not really, he said. She considered that, then nodded slightly. Fair. Sebastian watched her for a moment before speaking. You were right. Clara didn't react immediately. About what now? About systems, he said. About control. She waited. He continued. I thought structure protected things, he said. but it also filters them. You lose what doesn't fit. Clara leaned forward slightly. And you don't fit systems, he added. That landed differently this time. Not as conflict, as observation. Clara studied him for a long moment, then said, "Neither do you. You just pretended better." That got a real reaction, subtle, but real. Sebastian nodded once. Yes. Silence. Not uncomfortable. Just shared understanding. Clara looked back down at the sketches. So what are we doing now? Sebastian didn't answer immediately, because this time, the answer wasn't procedural. Finally, he said, "We stopped correcting each other." She gave a faint nod. And we start building around it, he said. That made her pause. Then she looked at him again. "You're getting better at this," she said. "At what?" "At not trying to win." "I still do," he admitted. "I know," she said. "You just don't lead with it anymore." That was accurate. He didn't deny it. Instead, he stepped slightly closer, not intruding, not distant, just present. Clara didn't move away. That mattered more than anything said. After a moment, she spoke again. "If this is partnership," she said, "then it doesn't come with conditions hidden underneath it." "It doesn't," he replied immediately. "And it doesn't reset when something uncomfortable happens." "It doesn't," he repeated. She nodded once. "Good." A pause. Then she added, quieter. "And it doesn't disappear when it gets inconvenient." Sebastian looked at her. "I know," he said. Silence followed. This one wasn't tension. It was decision. Clara set the pencil down. "You still choose it," she said. "I already am," he replied. Another pause. Then she stood up, gathering her things. As she passed him, she stopped briefly. Not looking away, just stating it clearly. "You know this started with 15%, she said. Sebastian's expression softened slightly. "Yes. And now?" He answered without hesitation. "Now it's more than I planned for." Clara gave a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "That sounds like your problem." "It is," he said. She turned toward the door, then added, without looking back, "I'm not leaving." "I know," he said. A beat. "And I'm not asking you to," he added. That made her pause for a fraction of a second. Then she continued walking. No drama. No final break. No grand closure. Just continuity. Sebastian stayed where he was. The room was quiet, but not empty. And for the first time, what they had wasn't something that survived conflict. It was something that learned how to exist after it.